Hello all. Good afternoon. I'm Priit. I'm from CodeMagic, one of the engineers, and today I'd like to share some thoughts and experiences we've had building a CICD service that has targets Flutter as its main platform. I hope that you're not too tired yet, this being the second day or the second half of it. And I'm going to say one thing. The title, it has Flutter in it, but CICD, it's not really that different for Flutter compared to, say, iOS or Android or other hybrid platforms. So definitely we'll have a little emphasis on the Flutter part, but it will be more general than that. Okay. Okay. Now then, the abbreviation CICD, it keeps popping up everywhere. Kind of a buzzword these days, much like data science, I'd say. Everyone is talking about it. There are many opinions lying around. Probably you've read some blog posts that say that you do definitely everything wrong. There is a better way in every aspect, and you should apply it. It might be the case that you indeed do something wrong, but definitely not necessarily. In essence, what CI, continuous integration, is that you just want to get immediate or just as fast as possible feedback to your development practices. And how you carry it out is really individual. And what suits for you might be terrible for someone else, and yeah, we're all different, and different means carry the best result for us. And yeah, once we have this cycle going, we get the feedback as fast as possible, and as we all know, fixing bugs before they hit the production line is a lot easier, cheaper, less stressful than tackling those down the line of user devices. CD, or continuous deployment, on top of it is another cycle. In addition to just testing, maybe you build the application as well, but you also apply code signing, ship it out to different target groups, be it your internal testers, some little bit broader audience, or even full automated flow to App Store or Google Play Store. Sorry for that. Yeah, this is continuous deployment. Sadly, though, with mobile apps, we cannot get this fully 110% continuous deployment going on due to the very nature of how mobile apps work, and as opposed to, say, web app servers, where we developers push the code and users passively get the latest results. With mobile, we still have this one more step where the client, the device has to have its own action to fetch in the latest version, install it, and so forth. But maybe someday we will be there to have fully automated deployments. I'm sure looking forward to it. Few words about my background and in CI. Some 10 years ago, I started off as a QA engineer for Android applications. So from the day one, I was faced with with the industry standard tool at the time, Hudson. And yeah, we had our miseries, better days too, but mostly it was devastating, heartbreaking, and just painful to keep the emulators going. This is still an issue today, and we'll get to that later. But soon after that, I ended up being part of an Android team, and fast forward another 2 years, we had internally in the company some spare resources. Our iOS team didn't have any CI setup going on because maintaining the Jenkins was, we transitioned to Jenkins at some point, was just too much work. And as a weekend hackathon, we decided to brew our own CI service. Couple of months passed, we polished some corners off, and soon enough, it was a mobile app agency. We have had a number of apps in development at the same time. Most of the projects were transitioned to this new in-house system. And I don't remember the exact timeline, but soon after we decided to let it out in the wild and give external users a shot at it. So, the brief history of CI. I'd say the modern automation starts with Hudson, and it was released in 2005. It provided all the main building blocks of what you would expect from a CI. You could trigger builds from Git hooks, of course, and other version control systems could be used as well, like Subversion, CVS, and the list goes on. It was basically just do this task, do that task, and so forth. Minor upgrade was launched in 2011. At first, pretty much a rebranding. Then later, Hudson was abandoned. Jenkins is still very much alive. Probably the most feature-rich CI system you could think of. I cannot imagine a task that you cannot accomplish with Jenkins, but just with great power comes even greater responsibility to keep the beast alive. Back at the day, of course, what you needed to feed it, to keep it alive, your own server farm, and going through this this maybe not so user-friendly UI. It kind of changed in the 2012 when Travis gained popularity. A still popular automation tool from Germany, and what really changed was that boom, we had cloud. And this was kind of end of an era where you'd have to maintain everything by yourself. Collection of complicated bash scripts were merged into quite a manageable YAML configuration, and it just worked most of the time. Especially if you didn't go into the mobile side of things, but it was okay. So yeah, Travis. And from there on, there has been a bloom of different kind of CI services. Some specializing in one niche, the others in other. We wanted to perfect the mobile path to make it seamless to build your app from source with zero configuration and release it to public. So when you build a CI service, you're thinking yourself as a CI user There are some groups, you might wonder. There are hobbyists, freelancers, teams. Truth to be told, there is really a mixture of everything when you start to think about it. A hobbyist from, say, who is developer by trade, but maybe he or she is working not with mobile apps, but something else, the day-to-day work. Then they might have like very complicated, streamlined, top-of-the-line solutions that crafted out that they perfect over the weekends, over the nights. And there is no difference whatsoever from a professional team, from the setup they are looking for. And same goes for freelancers. Yeah, it's really mixed together. And in the end, it doesn't matter who you are in this list. Your platform for CI you use, it has to meet all your needs. And what you want is probably not to maintain your server instances, but have fun coding and just lift this burden of maintenance to someone else to have fun while working, or I don't know, it might be your hobby as well. So, regardless of how this pipeline works for you, tailor it to your needs. What might suit to one can be huge overhead to another. Maybe you need to add additional steps, hooks, pipelines, workflows, whatnot to your setup to make it work. There is no one single answer that or silver bullet that could cut through everything. But then again, what are the main basic building blocks you want to look for from a CI tool today? Surely minimal maintenance. The day of on-site service is probably over, especially for mobile teams. Cloud-based works well, gets everything done. Extensibility. Probably when you start with something, you don't need all the wide variety of options that come into play later on. So think ahead of time. A little bit emphasize on what might come. The transition from one system to another, there is a friction. So if at one point of time you think, I'm on the limit, but I think this will do, you might want to reconsider that you can extend your setup with scripts, custom steps, and so forth. Also, for the maintenance and scalability side, you don't probably want to be in this mess of new Xcode issues that might come with some releases and mess up all your build steps. So when you're using a dedicated service, they probably take care of it for you. What else? Teams definitely need some permission systems and so forth. And of course, testing. Testing being integral part of any CI/CD workflow. And once the tests pass, you probably look for some delivery options, not only to Play Store, App Store, but maybe something else. Okay, but this is what we want from CI, what CI can provide to us, the feedback, the information we obtain from it. One common pitfall that we've seen is that any platform, but Flutter especially, comes with such a rich ecosystem of plugins, packages that you as a developer probably don't need to too much besides gluing or welding the packages together to get a good-looking, functional, fast application. But what can happen when you fetch half of the internet to your application is that it becomes a Jenga tower. And sadly, what we've seen is that many very basic open source applications, some so-called templates even, that are essentially maybe shopping lists, to-do lists, they don't even interact with any internet services, but they have many Firebase packages. Not saying anything about this very pub spec. I don't remember what application was it from, but you see, there are tons of, not tons, tens of different external packages, and maintaining something that is not under your direct control can get messy. Upgrading something can cause direct conflicts with another package, so better keep your lists short, consider if you really need something, and then consider again. Because in the end, what happens to Jenga tower, it will collapse. Good example from JavaScript world, was it 2014? Good old package left bad. Everything used it, didn't do anything. It was worth of single line vanilla JavaScript, and bam, it was gone from the npm package repository, and hundreds, even thousands of web pages collapsed. It was impossible to update them. But when you have your CI pipeline set up properly, these issues come out rather sooner than later. There are ways to measure it. First, if your build time starts to grow rapidly, then probably something is wrong. Keep an eye on it. If your binary sizes grow, then again, something is probably wrong. Flutter has a good reputation of keeping the binary small, and it should be that way, unless you really have some big graphics or data included. Also, logs are your friends. Read them carefully. Not only for failed builds, but if the build times exceed some reasonable threshold, then often there are warnings. Flutter itself sometimes has very good, provides good means to fix something. Read the logs. It's your true source of information. And cannot stress it enough. Go ahead and write them tests. At first, it's a burden. Takes huge amount of time, but especially when you are working on a single application. These here are one Toyota's mobile application. We're building it for them. You see, this is just one test suite. Their coverage is over 3,000 test cases, but this single suite. And when you have made the commitment, it pays off later on. You get this feedback, and you can immediately fix stuff before anything breaks in production. If you don't have the resources to do such extensive coverage, go ahead and do just the very basic of your business logic. That this is definitely working always, and use CI for that. But it's not only testing or automated tests. Agencies, for example, they usually cannot afford to have such huge coverage. Since new app comes in, it's shipped in, say, 2 months, and later on, after maybe a year, half a year, you need to maybe add a new feature, fix a couple of bugs. Our friends from Mobilab, they have roughly 200 projects going on for which they have set up a CI environment. Imagine that. If you have a robust system in place, you can rely on it. If anything breaks, just hit another build, get the logs, run the tests, and you don't have to worry about the new setup, whether to get the new build, and so forth. Keep the history, keep the logs, read them, and also if you have a very streamlined CI setup, we've heard that onboarding new members to the team becomes a breeze. As the building blocks for your to set up your development environment is described in some very specific steps. You don't need to figure anything out. It's all there in the CI setup. And that doesn't include only mobile or Flutter. It's for everything. You want to get your binaries out to your users. Make sure that your CI setup is integrated with all the tools we love and use. Of course, Google Play and App Stores are the final means to get to your clients. But in between, there are a number of steps. You yourself, your team lead, your product owner, wants to see the intermediate results. With today's tools, it's fairly simple and easy to just set up the Slack notifications, maybe email, whatever gets the job done for you. But just keep in mind that without accessing or having access to the binaries, you cannot really use your product. However, it isn't that simple because also we need to somehow persist some data. Imagine that you have built some application and then a bug in production occurs. And sadly, it's not the latest version that came out. Your user didn't update the app, and we know that production applications are obfuscated. So how do you make sense of the logs or the traceback? Make sure to have a direct connection from a certain version back to the Git tag or commit message. And there, again, you have links to the deobfuscation symbols or ProGuard map, whatever it takes to get to the root cause of the problem. Just publishing to the, say, Play Store is not enough because it's one-directional communication. Bear in mind that the debug symbols do come in handy, and you probably need to access them. Another part that CI has to take care of, or CD, is code signing. Flutter developers probably have their experience with it. I assume Android is usually the easy part. You just have the key store and passwords and aliases, but fairly simple, static stuff. You keep it intact, somewhere secure, it's okay. For iOS, things first expire. The provisioning profiles, then of course your teammate has a new iPhone. Suddenly he cannot use the new version of the app. So for local setup, debug stuff, definitely go with the Xcode managed profiles signing setup. But as far as the CI/CD goes, try to automate as much as possible. If your current preferred CI solution doesn't come with integration to automatic integration to Apple's tools, then Fastlane's Match is a good option to consider. Recently, we have been open sourcing our code signing setup tools, and also finally, Apple truly released or published their API to communicate to the App Store Connect, the developer portal where you can create and fetch and revoke and update the profiles. So definitely try to automate everything, otherwise it gets out of hand. And this is not only for Flutter, of course. Native iOS apps have the same issue. And few words about test automation. Today in the morning there was a thorough talk about testing. I won't dig into the details, but what you should do definitely. First, static code analysis. Flutter comes with the built-in analyzer. There is no reason whatsoever not to use it. It's one command, just basically lints your code, and you get immediate feedback. This being cheap, hence it's also cheap to run on the CI. It gives quite good feedback. What's wrong where? Here, in this very example, the XS keyword is picked up by the analyzer, and you can quickly remove it and have your next state of code already healthier. Yeah. Next up, unit tests and widget tests. Of course, a little more involved. You actually need to put some effort into it to write them, but at least they are very easy to run. Platform agnostic, fast. You get the feedback by just Flutter test, and that's it. Probably your CI tool has a nice way to show the results or the error messages too. So with those, we're pretty much covered. The last beast, though, integration tests. This is probably the most painful or bottlenecky thing you could have in your Flutter test automation. Writing them is still okay. Flutter has great tooling for that, but sadly, first to run our tests on even on iOS simulator, you need a Mac. Or if you want to go further and test it on a device, then you need Apple's hardware. Not all have access to that, and it's not like unicorns and rainbows with Android either, as spinning up a virtual emulator in a CI environment is kind of involved, extremely slow due to many virtualization issues, but luckily there are ways to overcome this issue. For instance, there is Firebase Test Lab. Works very nice with native Android or iOS tests. You just throw in your main binary, test binary, and you get fast feedback, reliable feedback of how the tests went. Well, there are possibilities to have screenshots and video of the test run and so forth. Sadly, though, cannot use it with Flutter, because Flutter drive tests have a different mechanism. We don't have a standalone test package that we can use alongside with the main application. But worry not. Actually, AWS Device Farm already precedes Test Lab by a couple of years, and lately it has become very flexible, I'd say. And in addition to the just native tests and those fuzzy or monkey tests, it allows you to plug in some hybrid test frameworks as well. And namely with Appium, test automation framework, you can bridge your Flutter drive tests to physical devices on the device farm, or any device from the pool, can be virtual as well. And to get it running, or to get a glimpse of it, Sylph is a nice tool. It definitely can give you a good outline of how to get the setup working. Even if you don't like Sylph after all, then you see the steps that are needed to run the Flutter drive tests on any virtual or physical device as part of your cloud-based CI pipeline in the cloud. Yeah. Altogether, yeah, there really is no reason not to have your test suite executed on actual devices. But to wrap it up, there are no uniform solution, hence I didn't give any. Really twist this loop to your needs, tailor it, apply results, some changes one by one, apply it to your company's or your own project needs, and get a better, more seamless development experience out of it using CI. Read the logs and write the tests. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for your talk. It was very insightful. I was wondering if you could share any tips on how to have native legacy code on iOS running with Flutter integrations on CI, because for us, that's been a pain.
Could you repeat the beginning? Having native...
native legacy code and Flutter integrations in one build on CI, so it runs. Any tips for how to manage that? So
essentially it's still iOS app, native iOS app.
Yes, but it has a Flutter integration, and when we try to run it on CI, it breaks everything.
It breaks. Probably you're not the first one to have this issue. Hard to tell. Each case is different, but essentially you need to have everything set up for native iOS and also Flutter on the side. Sorry, I can't give any concrete
very broad question.
Advice for that case.
All right, thank you anyway.
Hello. So I get this question a lot, so I would like to delegate that to you. Can someone who doesn't own a Mac build and deploy an iOS app using your service, using CodeMagic?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. If you want to know how, visit the booth or read our blog.
Can you just maybe explain it in a few words?
Sure. Flutter, you start off your application with Flutter create name. It generates everything that is needed for the initial setup. In CodeMagic, the bottleneck is the signing part probably. Without the Mac, there is no straightforward way to create the signing certificate. But you throw in your Apple credentials to our service, and we do it for you, and automatically sign the binary during the build. And also later on, you can configure publishing to test flight, beta testing, or how it's called. But this step, in essence, can be done with drag and drop upload from any platform. There are some misconceptions of for what you need actually Mac and for what you don't. Actually, it's only the building part that requires Xcode, and then exporting the IPA. But all else can be actually automated on any platform. Thanks again.